Greetings and blessings, everyone. James Thomas Devitt. This is another video in our series with the Blue Star Temple Spiritual School of Illumination. This is Down the Rabbit Hole Part 2. Now, please understand that what I'm going to be sharing today is going to probably blow some people's minds. And for some people, they'll probably go, I knew it. Some people would probably go, that explains a lot. This is something that, in my experience anyway, I've not heard anyone talk about. So this is it. This is the first place, if you will, that you're going to hear this kind of information. And I do encourage you to pass it along and you know, let other people know about it, because this information can actually assist a lot of people. There is so much that goes on here in this planet that is very difficult to keep track of everything that happens. But here recently something was brought to my attention. Something that I hadn't really focused on much or overly considered. But the time has come. I've spent some time discerning, and I've consulted with a couple of sources that are quite, close to me. And I made the decision that it was time to bring out this information. So, Down the Rabbit Hole Part 2 is all about the ancient gods and goddesses, demigods, and heaven and hell. Now, for some of you who have watched the videos and everything, some of you that know me have heard me say, there is no such thing as heaven and hell. And on one side of the coin, that's true. There is no heaven and hell in the sense that we have to believe a particular doctrine in order to go to heaven. And if we don't believe in that, we're going to go burn in hell for all eternity. No. That heaven and hell doesn't exist. But there is a heaven and hell that does exist. So let's go back a little bit in time. We know the ancient gods and goddesses, everyone from Odin, the Vikings, to the Greek gods and goddesses, the ancient Egyptian gods and goddesses, the Mayan gods and goddesses, so on, so on, and so on. We classify those today as myths. But within every myth is some truth. Those ancient gods and goddesses do exist. They are extraterrestrial. They came here for a couple of reasons, shall we say. One was to instruct native humans and assist them in moving forward. And also to assist in another capacity. You see, amongst the ancient gods and goddesses are those who would, for modern terminology and for the purposes of this video, we'll just say there are those gods and goddesses that are classified as light workers, and those gods and goddesses that are classified as dark workers. The gods and goddesses that are light workers, they do a lot to assist light workers on the planet. Those gods and goddesses that are dark workers do a lot to assist dark workers. Heaven and hell basically are the places, if you will, Heaven is that place where the ancient gods and goddesses of light reside, and the ancient gods and goddesses of darkness reside in what we term hell. Now, heaven and hell reside in what we term the near realms, which is basically the fourth dimension around this planet. However, the near realms, which is the fourth dimension around this planet, is different, vibrates at a different frequency than your normal fourth dimension, which is throughout the universe. With me so far? Okay. These ancient gods and goddesses are still here. Now, there is another purpose for the heaven and hell, and that is for those individuals incarnated here who have this really deep-seated belief that they're going to go to heaven or they're going to go to hell. They have somewhere that they can go and experience or come close to an experience of that nature. And they are allowed to experience that for a short amount of time, and then they're drawn out of that and brought back up to where they need to be to prepare for their next incarnation, so on and so on. But it's not a place where people go because they've been really good or really bad. No. So in that regard, there is no heaven and hell, but in the regard that the ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness, there is a heaven and hell because that's where they reside. And then there's another place, which is a place of neutrality where they come together and meet, discuss things. And the discussions get rather heated, more times than not. Because as I've talked about before, those of light, they have a very clear vision of how things should be. Everything should be in order. Everything should be following these rules and so on and so on. And those of darkness are like, no. Chaos and conflict and war. That's what drives everything. That's what creates evolution. So what we've had basically for a very long time now is both structure, order, things this way, as well as chaos, conflict, war. And people have moved forward. Think about it. You have the ancient Greek gods and goddesses, and where on this planet is most people saying is the cradle of civilization? Where did it really start? Greece. In the Mayan tradition, you have one of the ancient gods, which is known as Quetzalcoatl. Now, he brought to them mathematics and time, space, and it's because of his teachings that they came up with the Mayan calendars. But you see, he wasn't an Indian. He was white, Caucasian. And he's one of their gods. He came actually from Atlantis. And he was extraterrestrial in nature. And of course, the Egyptian gods and goddesses, and so on and so on. So basically, they stepped back. They gave their information, they gave their knowledge of what they needed to at that time, and then they stepped back and allowed humanity to proceed. But they're still here, you see, because they classify themselves as being the ones in charge of the light workers and the ones in charge of the dark workers, who are incarnated, who are volunteers here on this planet. And this is where the problem resides. Now, before we get more into the problems, let me bring in the third trifecta of this little scenario, and it's the demigods. Now, what exactly is a demigod? The ancient gods and goddesses, many of them mated with native humans. If you ever have the opportunity or the chance to go to the Vatican Museum or La Louvre in Paris, you will see paintings of angels embracing humans, and it's obvious that it's a very intimate relationship type scenario situation. And it is reported, in many of the ancient texts of the gods mating with humans. When one of these gods or goddesses mated with a human and there was an offspring, the offspring was known as a demigod. The demigod is someone who is basically half extraterrestrial, half native human. However, you see, there are those in charge of this project that knew what was coming, knew what was going to happen, and laid the groundwork as well. The souls who entered the demigods, they don't serve the light, and they don't serve darkness. Now, when they were originally born in that initial incarnation as a demigod, physically here they had immense abilities and could do all sorts of things depending upon who they were and who their god parent was, and so on and so forth. But you see, once that incarnation finished, they weren't immortal like the gods and goddesses were. They were mortal like native humans were. So they began the process of the reincarnational process of birth, death, and rebirth, which we have discussed in a previous video. Now, the demigods have a very special ability. They can go to heaven and they can go to hell. And they can interact with the ancient gods of light and the ancient gods and goddesses of darkness. And nothing can stop them from doing that. So for many of them, they have become messengers, if you will, between the two sides. They are also peacemakers, and they help to maintain the peace. Now, this is a critical time in the history of Earth. As I have discussed in previous videos, on the 21st of December 2012, we hit the point of no return. The native human population in 1987 at the harmonic convergence chose to evolve. And on December 21st, 2012, we passed the point of no return. This planet is going to evolve, and there is nothing anybody can do to stop it. Part of the problem in the moment is two things. Actually, more than two, but we'll start with the easy one first. The demigods are all incarnated in physical right now. They are in many different places around the world. For those demigods who are aware that they are demigods and are conscious of their contact with the ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness, they have been told that they are the only one incarnated at this time, which is incorrect. It is incorrect because if the demigods join forces energetically, it could very, very much so shift the energetic structures of what's happening in the moment. Now, we have discussed previously in a previous video about groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and different things like this. And yes, if you watch the news about ISIS, yes, Turkey is very involved in supporting ISIS, and they're getting support from Saudi Arabia, the US, and different entities. Not completely, mind you, but elements of, you know, they have an agenda, shall we say. Now, part of it is the old energy is fighting to maintain its control against the new energy. What is the old energy? It is what the ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness have brought. They're fighting each other to see who is going to take things forward. Where's the real crux of the problem, though? The old gods and goddesses of light and darkness who reside in heaven and hell, in the near realms, reside in the near realms. They have forgotten many things because the near realms, there is a great deal of illusion there. You can get people who cross over and they experience many different things. There's the, let me just look up very quickly here. What dreams may come. Have you seen that movie with Robin Williams? Great movie. But you see, when they cross over, they create different things according to their beliefs, according to all sorts of things. What they need to experience. Well, these ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness have been residing in the near realms for a very, very, very long time. And although they have done what they've needed to do as far as assisting to move the native human population forward, they're under the impression that they're in charge of this project, and they are not. They think they're in charge of all the volunteers, and they are not. They are here to assist the volunteers who are incarnated, and they have forgotten this. Part of the reason for me doing this video, there's two main reasons. Number one, it is important for people to be aware of what's going on here, but also to make certain beings aware of what's going on here. So you see, those of darkness, the ancient gods and goddesses of darkness, are pushing their agenda, utilizing native humans and many humans to create conflict and fear and hatred and divisiveness because they're trying to show how this will help move everything forward. And then you have the gods and goddesses of light who are doing similar things, and you can see the people on the other side, even though you don't really see a lot of that on the news because it's all about ratings, it's all about the most dramatic crap that you can put on there, which is usually bad news. But they're pushing in their own agenda to show how the way they do things is a way forward. And what they need to understand is neither way works anymore. And we're aware that they're there. This is what's important. This is the important part. They have been able to operate with immunity. Why? Everyone thinks they're a myth. They've forgotten. It's been taken away from people. But it's not taken away from demigods who are in physical, who are aware that they are a demigod. And then this demigod is sent to an individual who can change things. So what ends up happening here is the fact that we have a conflict happening on this planet. And as I spoke about in a previous video, back in the 60s and 70s in the States, it was all about a race war between blacks and whites, and now they're trying to create a religious war. I've met many Muslims who are very wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm not saying that they don't, it isn't their desire not to have a world filled with Islam. But in truth, they are, for all intents and purposes, very wonderful people. They have their way that they worship God, and that's all there is. And although they would love to see the entire world to be Islam, they're not actively trying to force Islam down other people's throats, and they're not trying to change people to be something that they're not. But you see, there are many people on this planet who are easily led. So it's always easy to find little followers and people who will do things no matter what. And they offer rewards, and they offer money, and they offer power. And there are always plenty of people willing to put their hand up and say, yeah, give me some of that. And many of these people are now in charge here in this world. But now they're being blatant about it. They're already talking in the States about circumnavigating the electorate to put the candidates in that they want. And they're not even hiding it anymore. It's very important to be aware of what's going on. So we have these ancient gods and goddesses that are playing a very dangerous game. And they're playing a very dangerous game with all of us. So what do we do? What can we do to counteract that? Very simple. Live your life from your heart. Discern with your heart. Follow your heart and guidance. I know. Carl, I believe it was Carl Williams in the group, in the way, said, a lot of people say all the answers are all within you, and that's true, it is. But you have to take the time to learn the difference between what comes from your heart and what comes from your mind. Learn, is it coming from a place of ego, of control? Is it coming from a place that isn't of love? You people aren't stupid. You're highly intelligent people that have all been given these tools of discernment, of being able to listen within. And so many people have told you, don't do it. It's the wrong path. It's the wrong thing to do. I've talked to many Christians who, and it's like you talk about the heart, and they're like, oh, no, we don't go there. It's got to, it's very clear. It's right here. You no. The heart is the answer. Love is the answer. Speaking truth from the heart. Not putting anyone down, not trying to destroy anyone, not trying to build yourself up at the expense of others. Speaking your truth. And knowing the difference about who to say things to and who not to minimize conflict. You have to be willing to find the keys and open the doors and walk in, discover the new truths, discover the new ways. Because right now we got a war on our hands. We literally do have a war. And this war is being fought by the ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness in the near realms. And they're utilizing humans to bring it to Earth. They've done it before, and they're trying to do it now. Those demigods need to realize they have more power than they realize. They can affect change a great deal more than they realize. A demigod, if they wanted to, could put a message out energetically that only could be received by other demigods. And they could all come together and meet together and decide the best way of moving forward with regards to the ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness. Because you see, all the demigods, they're volunteers as well. They also have come from elsewhere. And the ancient gods and goddesses don't realize that. This is a critical time in Earth's history. I've walked this path in this year. It's been 30 years. And I have occasionally taught a class here, a class there, spiritual development, Reiki, opening the channel, different things. But it hasn't been until last year that I was told that it was time for me to start teaching. That it was time for me to start bringing through new tools to assist people, which is where the guidance scrolls came from, the Akashic scrolls rather. That's where they came from. The guidance sessions that I do on Skype and in person and stuff like that, that's where that came from. It's always been inside of me, waiting. Now it's time. Now it manifests. All of a sudden I'm doing YouTube videos. I've got an online group now. All of these things are happening because it's time. Look at the different people. How many of you listening to this video in this now moment, which is your now moment, no matter when you're listening to it, how many of you feel the energy? How many of you who have been doing the work, who have been working at opening yourself and becoming more aware and things of this nature, how many of you can say that in the last month, the last 6 months, the last year, you've changed dramatically? You're not the same as you used to. How many of you have been losing friends? Having relationships end? Having this incredible urge to move, to change what you're doing? You're not alone. Not at all. Because you see, I've changed a tremendous amount since the 21st of December 2014. Some very magical event took place for me and Janice. And then when we went to Israel last September, October, and completed what we needed to do, we completed the beginning. And now we're here to remind people of who they are. We're here to open the doors so that you can walk through and become more of who you truly are. The ancient gods and goddesses of light and darkness in heaven and hell, they don't want you to know these things. They don't want you to know that they're here still, that they're interfering still. Because the message going to them is, it's time for you to back away. You're not in charge anymore. Truth be told, even with them here, we have still done what we've needed to do. There is so much more at stake than even they realize. And they can't hold us back. You want to know how to change the world? You change yourself first. Once you do, you become a living example by the way you live your life. There'll be those who will scorn you, criticize you, and there will be those who will be inspired by you. I put that message out a couple of days ago about being blunt and about, speaking truth. Because I have been told that, people are just too fragile, for the way you come across, and you're too direct. And many years ago, the U.S. government, when they discovered that extraterrestrials were real, that they were visiting, that they'd been visiting for a very, very long time, they got religious leaders together, they got different leaders of different fields together, science, all these different, people together, and they spilled the beans. They told them everything and said, do we share this with people? And they're, no, they couldn't handle, no, it'll cause chaos, it'll cause fear, everything will break down. So they took it, they hid it, and they compartmentalized it so heavily that there's only a very small handful of people who know the whole truth of what's going on this planet as far as that goes. You listen to channeled messages, you listen to other spiritual people go on, and it's all love and light, and it's all, this is so beautiful, and this is so perfect, and all the, there's going to be first contact any time now, and all funds are going to be released to all those worthy people. Give me a break. We're the ones here doing the work. If the extraterrestrials were going to show themselves, land on the White House lawn, as it were, they would have already done that. They will make contact in person for everyone to see when humanity's ready, not before. Not only that, they are here, and they will continue to show themselves to different people, and they will continue to interact with different people. I'm sure that one of these days, very soon, Tobin will come back in and want to do another session for me to put it out on the YouTube again. I don't control Tobin. He comes when he wants to come. He says what he wants to say. I don't care. Sound familiar there, Catherine? I don't care. All I care about is I'm on this planet to be of service, and that's what I do. That's why I do these videos. That's why I have the online group, The Way, Spiritual Philosophy, in Facebook. That's why I do the personal Akashic Scrolls. That's why I do the personal guidance sessions. That's why I do the Blue Star Healing Method. That's why I'm going to be teaching the Blue Star Healing Method. All of these things, opening the channel as well. It's to be of service. It's to assist people in moving forward on their path, awakening to what's going on for themselves. The ancient gods and goddesses of light and dark, sitting in heaven, in their heaven and hell, they've forgotten. They have forgotten their purpose. They're not in charge. They're not in control. Don't buy into the fear. It's time for the demigods to join up again and to shift what's going on in the near realms. They have free passage and free access anywhere they want to go. This is one of the main reasons that the ancient gods and goddesses of light and dark had offspring. What they didn't realize is the demigods didn't serve light and dark, and they don't now. They're a fearless bunch, and there's more of them than you can possibly imagine. But the time has come. I always do my best to, when I do these videos, to give you information that assists you on your path. Don't just blindly accept what I say as truth. I spend a lot of time discerning the information before I share it. It resonates within me. There may be people ready for this information, and there may be people not ready for this information. And if you're not ready for this information, it may not resonate. Just because it doesn't resonate doesn't mean that it's not true. Doesn't also mean that it's not true on some level. Within the middle. Within the heart. That's the crux. That's your key. You want to move forward? You want to live a spiritual life? Every moment of every day? And this is whether you have a mainstream job or not, whether you're married, whether you have children, whatever your life may be. Do you want to walk a spiritual life? Then live from your heart. Learn how to listen to your heart. Feel what's inside. Many blessings. Tosha kitala hatarato takai taratomo hatatai talahi toratomo. Wayat karatomoiti tela protomota shahala protomotaka. Taino rotomokala idorotolo protomotora parakarama hanamati. Toshaprata la protomuti kiala hamadotomata. Many blessings in peace and love. Be good to each other. More importantly, be good to yourself.